what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Heroes Show. Cory and Nick with you here today, and I'm all caught up on DC's Titans, so I'm joining the DC party. I got a two-man crew. Nick doesn't have to go solo on these videos anymore. We're talking about Season 3, Episode 6, which is entitled Lady Vic, which is now streaming on HBO Max. Spoilers ahead. If you haven't checked out that episode, go watch it on whatever device you watch it on, and then come back and see us here on the YouTubes. Nick, it's the end of a holiday weekend. How are you today, sir?
Doing well. It's been a good Labor Day holiday off, and just trying to relish everything with this 3-day weekend before the work week kicks in.
It until the bitter end, right?
every minute trying to hold on to it. So
yep, for sure, man. So we had some fun stuff this weekend. We had Ted Lasso, we had Shang-Chi, we had I caught up on these last few episodes of Titans that I hadn't seen yet. So excited to get into this and talk about some DC. I think the DC hype train is gonna just start kind of churning out of the station more soon. Between this, Doom Patrol comes back later this year. The Peacemaker series comes out in January, and then Matt Reeves' The Batman is in March of 2022. Which it's like 2 weeks apart between that and Doctor Strange 2, which means March is going to be a big nerd month.
Yeah, and we got the DC fandom in October too.
Fandom's in October, so we should see some first looks at the Batman. Aquaman 2, I think, is going to be on there. The Flash, which
Black Adam,
fucking Michael Keaton as Batman again.
Yeah,
pretty wild stuff. So let's dive into this episode. There were a couple different story arcs that were going on here.
Yeah.
I guess we can start with Dick and Barbara, because we finally got to get a little bit of a glimpse as to their history, which was alluded to at the beginning of this season, but we got to see it in full form here. And turns out that Robin is not squeaky clean. Dick Grayson Robin, he's a thief.
He's not. Yeah, he's got some criminal activity there. So
what are your thoughts on that?
I thought it was sort of interesting, especially when Barbara makes the comment, "You guys work for my dad." I'm like, do they though? I mean, sure, they respond to a signal, but if anything, it's like, hey, if you want our help, you call us. Mm-hmm. So if anyone works for someone, you usually call them to do your bidding or whatever. But I thought it was an interesting comment from her. But you see the sort of lovers quarrel that takes place, right? And he partakes in the fun to expose the weak security systems at her to keep Commissioner Gordon, her father, on his toes. And it's like, it looks like they made away with a hoard amount of treasure, jewels, necklaces, like antiques. It's like we should return this. I'm like, yeah, you should, but you probably won't.
Yeah. So do you think Bruce knows that Robin's up to that, or
I was wondering that too. I almost half expected to see a little flashback about it, but I would want to say yes, because it had to maybe fully stop at some point. Not just because of what happens during that fight that we see in the flashback that shows that Dick knows of Lady Vic. Mm-hmm. But I want to say that Batman is the type of person, Bruce Wayne's the type of person to know that it's been going on. He just sort of wants to see where it leads, and then it's like, hey, Barbara, just become Batgirl.
Right?
You're already involved. You're already doing this sort of stuff. You've got what it takes to cut it. So just work for your dad.
Join me,
right?
So that someday the Joker can shoot you in the spine and leave you paralyzed and right in front of your father. So. Good fun. She also has a fun line where, she's good at what she does, exposing the systems and whatnot, and Dick is just like, well, you should work with us, and she's like, oh, I don't want to just turn into my father someday, and then, lo and behold, here she is, Commissioner Gordon in the present timeline, which I thought was interesting. It's very clear that in the present day, if you want to call it a breakup, I don't even know if they were officially like a couple or whatever, but that didn't go well because she had a sniper take a shot at Red Hood it accidentally hit Nightwing. And she was just like, "You all right?" He's like, "Yeah, it hurts." And she's like, "Good." Like there's some animosity there still.
Go home.
Go home. But we get to see a little more later on in the episode.
Yeah,
she gets duped by Lady Vic, and then Nightwing kind of comes to make sure she's okay. Checks out her apartment. There's some chemistry there still. I think, which will be fun to explore because I think we said this is 13 episodes this season.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's a good long way to go. We're only really the halfway point next week.
First halfway part.
We'll see where that goes. But Lady Vic, she's violent. Let's segue into the villains of this episode. We got a fun little diner sequence where she takes out a couple cops that are happily in a relationship, and we find out later in the episode that that's because her significant other got taken out by her own knife that she threw, which is not fun at all. So she hates couples, obviously, and she breaks into the hospital and does a hell of a number on the entire operating staff right in front of Dr. Jonathan Crane and Jason Todd. This was very obvious to me that Scarecrow was pulling the strings the whole time. Like Jason's just dumb. I hate to say it that way, but he's dumb, right?
He is. I mean, he seems like this impatient brat. Ever since the first episode, when he doesn't listen to Bruce, when he's Bruce tells him to stand down, disobeys his orders and just kind of dies in the process, only to potentially just. And I wondered if he even knew he was going to get reborn. I don't know if Scarecrow was like, "Hey, by the way, Joker might kill you if this happens, so it's okay. I've got a resurrection pit that was left here."
Good old Ra's al Ghul.
By Ra's al Ghul. So it's like I highly doubt that was ever talked about between them. But just his impatience. I never really liked that much of him from the comics. And it's sort of like one of those things where the actor who portrays Jason Todd in this show does a good job, but it's also very, very annoying to see. And because it's just like, dude, you're just being an idiot right now. You
could have been in a good place. Like Bruce offered you the opportunity to not have to be in the crime fighting life. To live with him, be his adopted son. Be filthy rich for your entire life.
Oh my God, like, so bad.
No, I'm gonna go, do the dirty work for like a sociopath doctor. Like it's just it's a dumb move. But Dr. Crane really flexes his muscles over him mentally in this episode, and he starts telling him, "You're expendable. Get on board, or else get off the train, and we'll take care of you," sort of thing. Which is interesting. I think that could eventually lead towards the inevitable Jason teaming back up with the Titans towards the end of the season, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I feel like will probably happen, because even in the end of this episode, after he steals the chemical,
he's selling them.
He sells it to a bunch of thugs, and then just watches them commit crimes. Like literally, just watches a guy go into like a restaurant ever and shoot some people. And you could see like the look on his face, almost like I maybe a little disbelief, a little shock that this is what it's come to, but it might be too late to turn back now. And obviously to the extent where he's just kind of acting on his own volition, and he's trying to rebel against yet another person. He rebelled against Dick, he rebelled against the Titans, he rebelled against Bruce, now he's rebelling against Scarecrow, because I'm the boss now. So it's like he just wants to be the guy in charge, but usually the guy in charge has a plan, and Jason just doesn't have a plan. And I thought that was kind of interesting, the moment when Gar asks Dick if he would have killed Jason, And there's a slight pause. He's like, why would you think I would do that? And I'm like, listen, if you respond that way, it usually means there's a chance that you would have killed Jason had push come to shove.
There's a chance.
Yeah. I'm like, see, if you weren't going to do it, you would have said no and left it at that.
Like, immediately.
But you're saying, like, do you think I would? Because I think in some cases, Dick was unsure of himself whether or not he would.
Right.
Like he literally just killed Hank, right? And then sent Dawn Perma away because she wants no part of this. So, it's down to Titans, and again at that point, it's just a question of whether or not we'll see Jason kind of turn around, so Dick doesn't have to kill him.
Right, because the Titans family is, like you mentioned, they're down quite a bit in their numbers. Hank is gone. Dawn is gone. Donna's dead. Raven's on an island somewhere. Like, they're shrinking down. I don't know if that had anything to do with, like, they filmed the season during COVID, so maybe they wanted to have a
smaller cast,
middle of the season with a smaller cast, and then bring everybody back for the the crescendo towards the end or something. But who knows how that whole thing is affected by that stuff. But I think obviously Lady Vic is a little bit more ruthless than Jason.
Very.
So she
doesn't care at all.
She'll do his bidding a little more than Jason would, I think. So we'll see what happens there. I also thought it was interesting that at the end, the noodle house that they attack, that's Tim Drake, right?
I'm pretty sure that is.
Okay, so
it almost has to be.
Tim Drake is the third Robin. So very interesting that it's all kind of tying together like that. 3 seasons, 3 Robins. I guess that it kind of makes sense where they're going here. But
very quick pace, but it's
pretty cool stuff. I one thing I do appreciate from this show is even though it takes place clearly in like an alternate timeline or universe from whatever DC's trying to do with their movies,
right?
They're not afraid to reference all sorts of characters. Whether it's Superman or Batman or Krypton, Tamarin, which is where the Fire Sister from. Like, there's a lot of references in this show. They mentioned Two-Face at one point. Like, it's very cool. It makes that world feel like it's very lived in, which I think is really neat. Instead of like some of the earlier Marvel TV stuff that they were like, well, we can say like the big green guy, wink, and then they can't talk about much else because it wasn't really part of the continuity, but it's sort of in the same universe. This is very clearly like a thing that's on its own. They can say whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. Like, they talk about the Joker. They show the Joker from his backside, so you don't have to see a face or anything, which I think is smart because there have been just too many Jokers in the last 10 years at this point. So I think that's all cool. I think the Scarecrow arc is good. I think he's probably one of the more interesting characters in the show right now, and pretty curious to see what his end game is and what his plan's going to be for the back half of the season. So on to the stuff that I don't care for that much. I get what they're trying to do with the supporting characters, and you've got Starfire, and she did the noble thing. She saved Blackfire, but Blackfire is kind of an asshole, and she goes and stirs up trouble, but at the end of the day, she's doing the right thing. Whatever. Like, you've got Connor, who is the spawn of Superman and Lex Luthor combined, so he's super smart. He's got all the Kryptonian stuff, but he's also kind of just like their errand boy. He's just kind of there. And same thing with Gar. Like, Gar is cool, and the actor, he showed some fire in this episode when he kind of blew up on Dick at the beginning. But like, at the end of the day, it's just like, where are these characters going? Like, it feels like the main story is Dick, Jason, Barbara, and Scarecrow. Like, that's the main plot, plot of the show. Everything else just kind of feels like it's just kind of plodding along from episode to episode. I don't know, maybe they'll do something wild that kind of brings it all together and connects it, but for right now, I don't know how you feel, but for me, every time they go from the A plot to the B plot, my head starts to just like lower a little bit. I'm like, all right, it's nap time.
Yeah, like I think for those characters, there's a couple funnier-ish moments where like the kitchen scenes, I kind of I didn't think they were bad at all.
And they're levity, right? Like they're meant to bring humor.
Yeah.
When the other plot is dark and has a lot of violence and drug use and daddy issues and shit like that. But I don't know.
Yeah, and it's sort of, and again, I thought this was sort of interesting too, where 3 episodes ago, we see Connor fail to stop the bomb that was in Hank's chest.
Yep.
And we see another bomb, and there's even less heartbeats. Well, not at that moment, but the moment they stumble upon the doctor with the implant in her chest.
Yeah,
like 30 something, whatever, and then he stops it within like 2 seconds left. So there's like a very short redemption for Connor there, but again, it's very short lived. The next like in episode 4, he got a little emo and whatnot, didn't know what he was doing, and I'm like, yeah, what's the show doing? He could have stopped Jason in a snap because he's Kryptonian.
Yeah, literally, he could just like laser his face off.
Yeah, like, oh, you want Jason back here? That's cool. I'll go snatch him, and he won't escape me.
Right.
He's not smart enough to stop me. Right.
I'll have him here in 30 seconds.
Yeah, just hang on, fly, get him, bring him back. Be like, okay, Dick, what do you want to say to him?
Yep.
It's that simple, and I understand like that's like cheat mode. You can't necessarily do that because then what are the other points of their characters? But
it's the reason why like Captain Marvel isn't in 80% of Avengers Endgame, because she's so powerful that she could just like eat Thanos and then movie be over, and you'd be like, all right, cool, we go home now. It's the exact same thing, when you have somebody that's that overpowered. I'm guessing it's probably why they haven't had Bruce Wayne suit up yet in the show. It's probably the same reason that a proper Superman hasn't shown up, because if they did, A, they'd take over the show because they're like the big name characters, and B, they're like so strong, these little issues that are going on would be solved in half an episode, and then the season would just be over.
Yeah, and it's like Batman only shows up when Joker does, but then in this season in this universe, Batman kills the Joker finally, and it's like, well, we don't see it, we just know what happened, and that's that. And then Bruce obviously kind of has a weird moment of just leaving because Gotham has finally snapped him, but it's an interesting take on this season and this universe that they're in, just because it's a little bit different than what we're used to seeing. And I really hope that Gar and Connor, that their arcs are to build in the second half, especially with I think Rachel should be coming back at some point. You see her in the trailers for the whole season. I just don't know when. I might have to go back and watch that and see where we're at now in terms of like what scenes that she's in. But I would anticipate maybe within the next episode or two. But even like Cory and Nick says, I have no fucking clue what to do with you. And I'm like, yeah.
Is that the writer's like subtext? Like, I don't know what to do with these characters.
Yeah. And I'm like, is that like legitimate like line? Is there any meaning behind that? Because, it's like, again, like, the family is dead. She can't get back to Tamarin because her spaceship's destroyed. So what's she doing there? And sure, Blackfire kind of helped them understand where Red Hood was doing, because she kind of went to the underground criminal section, was just like, yo, let me do some other sort of thinking for you guys, because you guys were just looking at it from a different angle. And I'm like, so she's trying to sort of provide some sort of usefulness, but still, I'm like, where are they going to go?
Yeah, and that's got betrayal written all over it too. Like, eventually, she'll use that against them and all that. It's typical comic book type stuff. But like I said to you before we recorded, this show is fun to just like pop on and watch without taking it too seriously. It's just like a real pulpy, comic booky type thing. It doesn't. Not everything has to be, like Loki splitting the multiverse, or
super heavy duty or serious
Falcon and Winter Soldier
implication
dealing with race and depression and stuff like that. Sometimes a comic book show can just be a comic book show, and that's fine. And it doesn't have to have a ton of emotional depth to it. It can just be dudes and chicks in suits beating the crap out of each other.
Absolutely.
And that is where I'm at with this show, and I'm in a happy place with it because of that. I'm not expecting anything overly outrageous. Although the prior episode, when they did all the flashback stuff with Jason and Bruce, I did think that some of that was actually pretty pretty good, pretty emotional, and it had some weight behind it. But then we went right back to normal with this episode. So score it out of 10. Where you fall on that one?
I don't know. I think last week's episode was probably the best of the season thus far.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I want to say this one is probably like, I don't know, maybe like a 7.3 ish.
Okay.
Maybe 7. I don't know. I feel like the number 7 is tainted from another reviewer. God.
That will go unnamed.
I'm going to say a 6.8 to 7.3. How about that?
All right,
range?
there we go. I was going to give it a 6.5, so that's...
there we go. I'll go 6.8.
I would say, since I wasn't on the videos prior, last week's was probably like a 7.5 or an 8.
I think it's what I gave it around there.
Good stuff behind it, but this one was like a typical Titans episode in that 6 to 7 range, and we'll see where they go. They got 7 episodes left before they close things out, and we'll be covering all of them. So that is going to wrap things up for this video. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you're watching this show every Thursday on HBO Max when it comes out, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. Do you think the show has a path that it's taking, or do you think it's kind of just lying in the weeds and waiting for something to happen? We'll definitely respond to any comments that are left, so please make sure to do that. And if you'd like to support us, you can do so for free. All you have to do is like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications if you haven't already, and share the video with your friends. We will be back this week. I'm going to have a 4K review of Zack Snyder's Justice League, speaking of DC. Very excited to compare that to the HBO Max stream. We can talk about Marvel's What If, which Marvel announced today is going to be the zombie episode.
Zombies.
Very excited to cover that. Shane and Nick recorded a predictions video for episode 8 of Ted Lasso, so make sure to stay tuned for that if you want to see what we think is going to happen in the next episode. And then I'm sure we'll cook up some other stuff to talk about as we go along too. So stay tuned to all of those things and so much more. Until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Peace.